There's two artists I notice that whenever anyone posts anything done by either of those artists,
Yeah.
all of the other artists start engaging and liking and everything. And those guys are Bill Sienkiewicz and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. I love them too, but I also love like other artists. So what is it about these two that really resonates with you guys?
Because they draw better than God.
Okay, then that's a simple explanation.
All right. So Jose Luis Garcia Lopez has a level of craftsmanship that rivals, like, say, Andrew Loomis or any of the old school, like Albert Dorn, all the old school, famous artist school of artists, like the masters of the form, like Norman Rockwell. He draws as well as any of those folks. I mean, I think Stuart Immonen, Louis LaRosa. There's probably a couple other. Oh God, the guy does Seven to Eternity. We have a handful. Mark Schultz, back when he did comics, was one of them. We have a handful of people who can draw as well as those guys, right? We have some guys that come close, but those are the guys. You look at their work, you go, they draw everything as beautifully as ever. And give them 10, 15 years down the road, people are going to be talking about them the same way Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. But at the time, you had Jose Luis Garcia Lopez at DC, and then and this is, I hope this will be taken as a slight, but it's not intended as such. After Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, then you had Curt Swan. And then it was downhill from there in terms of like superhero artists. I mean, Ross Andru was really good, but he didn't do enough work. Neil Adams had the impact that he had. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that Stan Drake realism that he did. But even he didn't draw as well as Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Yeah.
And that's just the bare facts. I mean, Neil wasn't around enough to really populate DC the way Curt Swan was. I mean, Curt Swan was Superman for so long. And then the other DC artists were not as good. I mean, It's like there's fan favorites. You can talk about George Perez, right? George Perez. Beautiful comic. Yeah. Incredibly affable guy, drew shit that no one else would want to draw, and he did it well. But there's no comparison.
He's not as good.
Like, it's not even necessarily as good. It's like Perez is a really excellent comic artist.
Yeah.
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is an amazing artist, period. Any stage you put him on. His painting is okay. His drawing is immaculate.
Yeah.
Bill Sienkiewicz, if we had to assemble the mix, Egon Schiele, Gustav Klimt, Marshall Arisman, Bob Peak. If you don't know any of these names, I'll happily explain to you. Baron Story.
I know Bob Peak and Baron Story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you could run down a long list of artists who are hugely influential beyond comics, and Bill brought them all into comics in his own fucking hands. They're all there, and he can transition from doing Disney looking stuff to like classic realistic Stan Drake type stuff to like expressionistic comics that are like, holy shit, I can't believe he managed to pull that shit off. Right? Anyone who can do that, and he does it flawlessly. Again, I mean, it's like I was watching a video he did for one of these art instruction places, and he was spraying, spray bottle bleach onto his watercolor because he knew what it would do. I sat next to Bill at a couple of conventions, and I watched him work. And I wish I could just. There's. Okay, so I'm 53. I'm turning 54 in January. I've been doing this for a while. There is shit he knows that no one else knows, and I would like to almost be like a Grateful Dead groupie and travel to every single con and get a guest table right next to Bill at every single con, and just watch him draw. Right, and just like, what are you doing now, Bill? What are you doing now, Bill?
I was wondering about that because when he says things on Facebook or something like, "Oh yeah, I put in bleach," or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this just something artists do, or is this just something you do?
Um, there are certain things I think he picks up from other artists because he said he's a creative sponge. He wants to learn everything. Um, and his ability to just incorporate any, like, he sees something as cool, he goes, oh yeah, I can pick that up, and I can drop it here and it works perfectly there because he's just been doing this and he sees things from that angle. He's easily one of the smartest artists I've ever talked to, like beyond just art. He's just one of the smartest guys I've talked to, and he's incredibly thoughtful, and he not only does he know composition and color, light, and value better than most people. I mean, all you got to do is like, you think everyone goes, "Oh, he started as Neil Adams clone." Well, take a look at Neil Adams paintings. Tell me how much of a clone he is, right?
Oh,
I mean, it's like Neil had this weird fixation for yellow that never worked. Like if you go
yeah.
through like one of Neil Adams art books, he would be pulling out this kind of weird lemony, cool yellow. He's like, "Ooh, it's so vibrant, it pops." It's like, no, it looks like shit in print, right? Bill just, it's like, oh, I'm gonna put this orange here where orange shouldn't go, but it's gonna fucking work, right? Or I'm gonna draw these little squares in blue on this black corner here, and it's almost fade, but it's gonna enrich in the whole image, and you're not really gonna notice it until you start looking for it, right? I mean, it's a level of mastery of the media and the form at the same time. No one else, no one. I mean, they asked Will Eisner to draw the Jimi Hendrix bio.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And then he kind of went, not me.
Even Will Eisner was
There's this
like,
young kid over here who can do this.